Hello and welcome to Staying Ahead of the Curve. I'm Jeff Snyder, Vice President, Senior Consultant with Camac Retirement Group, and we're pleased to have back Lisa Massena. She's the Executive Director from Oregon Saved, and today we're catching up with Lisa. Lisa, great to see you again.
Jeff, it's great to be here with you.
So you are back in New York City. You're attending the Global Future of Retirement conference here in the city, and you're actually talking about a different topic, but Oregon is almost ready to go live. Today is the 26th? Oh, I can't even get my date right. 26th of June, and we're close to the implementation date for Oregon Saves. So welcome back, and can we get a little bit of an update on what's going on?
Absolutely. So for those who don't know, maybe I'll just start with a little thumbnail about what the program is and how it works. Okay. So Oregon Saves is a retirement savings program for people who work for employers who don't offer one. So in Oregon, we have 1.8 million people working, and about 1 million people work for an employer that doesn't offer a plan. Aren't eligible for a plan at work is a better way of saying that. And 600,000 of those work for an employer that doesn't offer a plan. Oregon Saves specifically is, I think of it as an IRA funding mechanism. It's a hybrid of a 401k and an IRA, meaning your account is a Roth IRA, but the governance structure looks a bit like a 401k in that there is a board. The board establishes things like an investment menu for the program and sets some standard elections so that folks coming in to fund their IRAs don't have to make a ton of decisions to get started. So the standard elections are, first of all, we're using auto-enrollment. So of course there's full freedom to opt out of the program and not participate, but you can either auto-enroll or opt out. Once you're auto-enrolled, you'll be saving at a 5% rate, escalating to 10. Your investment structure will be, if you don't make any changes, first $1,000 goes into a money market fund, and everything after that goes into a target date fund based on your age, or a target retirement fund. And as I mentioned, the account type is a Roth IRA. So that's the standard path, but I know also some folks are going to look at that and say, gee, I'm getting a late start, I want to save more. Or, I'm not sure I can save that much, I'd like to start at a lower level. So complete flexibility with regard to the amount that people save up to the federal annual limits. And likewise, from an investment standpoint, someone might know something about themselves that we don't know, and they may change up their mix of investments.
So you've partnered with a record keeper that's a census.
We have.
And so we're at the go live point, right? I mean, you're beginning to take contributions on 7/3, is that correct?
Well, anytime after July 1, the folks are going to start sending their payroll-based contributions in. So a census have done a terrific job for us. We've spent the first part of this year really getting organized from an implementation standpoint. In 2017, we were doing 2 pilots. So our first pilot is a tiny shakeout pilot, make sure everything works top to bottom, side to side. And so we were looking for 10 employers. We ended up with 11. We've got about 150 people that are covered in the pilot. And the employers have all now completed their registrations. The employees, the notification periods are beginning to expire. So we've seen what's happening in terms of who is likely to come online and either activate their account or make changes to their account or opt out of the program. So we're starting to get some information and ready to take contributions.
Well, that's exciting. And when you and I spoke earlier this year, you had just really kind of selected the record keeper, and you were kind of heading down this implementation track. But there have been some legislative and regulatory developments. I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing some of those with the audience. You hinted at some of them in the interview, but now they've actually occurred. So I wonder if you might share some of that.
So absolutely. So by way of update, obviously we have a number of organizations or agencies in the country that are important to the work that we do. So one of them was the Department of Labor, and the Department of Labor in 2015 and 2016 had done some really good work to take a look at a 1975 safe harbor for payroll deduction IRAs and think about how that could or should apply to states. And so in August of 2016, they had issued an expanded rule essentially covering the state-based circumstances. Under the new administration, that rule actually was annulled, using the Congressional Review Act process. And so it caused all of us to take another look at what we were doing to make sure that we were still comfortable, that we continue to be, on the right side of everything based on that 1975 safe harbor. I think from our perspective, it was regrettable that this good work got thrown away. But on the other side, we've worked hard with a variety of folks to, again, make sure that we are on the right side of the law with the activity that we're doing. And I think also just to leverage best practices overall in everything that we're doing around the program.
So Oregon is really the first in the nation to kind of create this program and implement the program. But there are others around the country that are kind of following your template. I wonder if you could, California is one that I think you mentioned, but there are others that are looking at what you're doing and saying we can possibly do this too.
So a very exciting thing for me is that we're standing on the shoulders of folks who've done some terrific work, starting in 2012 with California, with legislative work that they did to get the ball rolling, and then a lot of research that they did, which we used. Connecticut also did a lot of research. There are several other states that are in the process of rolling out programs like this. So as you mentioned, Illinois and Maryland, California, Connecticut, all moving forward. And I like to picture us as sort of linked arms, working together again from this perspective of kind of a shared view and some best practices. There are other states that are also moving forward with some slightly different models. And again, we all know that we need more solutions on the table. At least I believe strongly we need more solutions on the table. So these things are also very valuable. So Washington and the state of Washington and New Jersey are working to implement retirement exchanges or marketplaces. And I think that's going to provide an opportunity set that doesn't exist today. And then I want to say it was last week or the week before, Vermont has passed a bill allowing for a MEP or a multiple employer plan. And I hear that New York City is doing, or probably it might be New York State, forgive me, is working to do something similar. And so a multiple employer plan is an ERISA-based program that's going to look it'll look more like a 401k than what we're doing, but it's a third type of choice. And I think that I'm excited about what they've done. Shout out to Treasurer Pierce and comrades there, colleagues there, I should say. And we're excited to see a few years down the road, how do they stack up? How's it looking? How are things working in one circumstance or another? I
think I was talking to you offline in the green room, and states really are the laboratories of democracy, and so everyone's kind of trying to take the best practices, kind of pull it all together, and figure out the path forward. So you mentioned it. So let's look past the implementation.
What does the future look like?
Let's get the crystal ball. I don't have my crystal ball. I wish I did. I wish I could tell the audience where the market was going to go. But let's kind of look down the road. We get this plan set up in Oregon. We've got the investments. And so what is the day-to-day? What does the future look like for the program?
Well, what I hope the future looks like and what we are aiming for, first, we've really got to get off the ground, get this aircraft up and flying. And so this is where we're taking a pretty measured approach in 2017 with 2 different pilots, a very small one, and then a larger one with more circumstances, so that before we go broad, we've tested a wide variety of employer and saver circumstances. I'd love to look back in a few years, and we've outlined a 3-year rollout starting January of 2018. But 5 years, I'd love to look back and see that we've got maybe 300, 400, 500,000 people saving through the program, and $1 billion or maybe a couple $1 billion in assets saved. It would really make me feel that we had accomplished our mission in creating a new opportunity for folks that don't have the same one today. And
it's about coverage. That's the name of the game. Let's get people who aren't covered by a qualified plan the opportunity to have coverage. And then looking into the future, it's about cost containment and making sure that you've got the lowest share classes and lowest fees possible.
That's true.
And I know something it's not just the Lisa Massena show, although today it is the Lisa Massena show. There's a whole team of people that are back in Oregon working on this program.
Absolutely, yes there are. So I'd love to give a shout out
Absolutely,
to
please.
my team, which includes Joel Metlin, who's working on outreach and engagement. It's really critical that both our employers and our savers in the state know what's going on and have a chance to play an active role in it early on. We have a fantastic project manager in Alex Nelson, Missy Simpson, make sure that everything that we do goes right and runs well. And there's a long list of other folks. Of course, Treasurer Reed and his team have been instrumental from before the bill was ever passed. And I'd love to bring up one other thing. We were
Sure.
talking a little bit about this concept of innovation. And before we get too far away from that, I just want to mention, because we didn't talk about it earlier, we're starting to see this state-based innovation spark private sector innovation. So I don't know if I mentioned to you, but early on, we had a couple of folks tell us they wanted to be in our pilot, and then a little bit of time went by and they came back and they said, you know, we don't want to be in the pilot anymore. We're establishing our own 401k plans. And they had found a way to get to a provider circumstance where it fit what they needed and it fit them better than Oregon Saves. And so I hope Ascensus is not watching this, but we put that in the win column. We think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you're leveraging best practices and you're sharing ideas, and that could come from the public sector or the private sector, and so that's where you get the best solutions, right?
We're seeing some really good things happen.
And you talked about it. You talked about the work Joel's doing, and I don't want to lose sight of the importance of education. I mean, we talk about this often in the defined contribution world, the importance of making sure that people understand financial wellness and are financially fit. They take into account their health care, their college. All of that has to fit together, and that's not lost on the program that you and Joel and the rest of the team are working on.
So a big part of what we are working on in this space is engaging with the financial education, financial literacy, financial capability network in Oregon. Part of what we think about is, are we communicating well with folks in the language we use and in the design we've used? Does that financial capability network know what's coming with regard to this particular catalyst that's coming down the pike? And another thing we are going to be keeping an eye on as we're out both communicating and then we start to see how people engage with the program is, you know, what do the demographics and the metrics look like? So who's in, who's out, who feels they're well served, who feels that for some reason it's not a good fit, and how should we think about them? And we have many different cultures, languages, folks to think about as we work on moving forward. So we're going to work on the basics, and then we're going to start to look at the numbers and think about where we need to spend more time.
And your organization does some tweeting, right? So you're taking advantage of some of the social media. Do you plan to use that as part of your outreach to employers? I think the technology angle is very interesting.
Absolutely. So a big part of what we're focused on is digital. So in particular, when we're working to be very what do I want to say, cost aware of everything that we're doing and get the biggest bang for the buck. It turns out that digital is the very best way to get good messages out, understand how they're working and who's getting them, and then do tune-ups. So some of that will be social media and some of it will be other forms of digital, and then we'll to the extent that we can afford it, look at a little bit of more traditional media as well.
But you won't be tweeting at 2 o'clock in the morning about Oregon Saves, or will you?
One never knows.
So changing gears, we're right now I just want to ask you about the federal regulatory and legislative process. So the Congress and the Senate are focused on the health care bill, but there have been talk about tax reform. If you had a wish or some things that you would like to see in terms of promotion of coverage, retirement savings, financial wellness and fitness, any things off the top of your head that makes sense, other than putting back in place the ERISA language that was stricken earlier in the term?
I think key things to think about are that we have a population that is slowly growing a little bit older. I'm a big part of that, by the way.
Myself included.
And as that is happening, we need to make sure that people have every tool in their toolkit to prepare for retirement, so that as perhaps unprepared folks, they don't come back into the system and both cost taxpayers more and then not have any choices themselves. So anything from a tax standpoint that continues to promote more active retirement savings, we think is a very good thing.
Well said. Lisa Massena, it's great to see you, and thank you for coming back onto the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.